You are listening to That Big CEO Energy, where we talk all things business, life, marriage, and push you to a new edge of discovering what that big CEO energy means for you. Listen, I understand that we have barriers that we carry from when we were once employees, and those have impacted us as we continue to build our businesses. I'm here to walk alongside you and give you encouragement through interviews with friends and other women in business who have broken down those barriers and paved their own way. Tune in with me as we uncover some of the unconscious things that we do that keep us from building that big CEO energy we've always dreamed about. Let's dive in. My dear friend Nina Albert has this saying, and she says, where your energy flows is where you grow. And I thought, well, I have an abundance of energy. Of course I'm growing. And I didn't really understand what she meant. Over the past couple weeks, I've just been kind of feeling drained, if I can be honest with you. I felt tired, exhausted, and maybe it's from this 2 weeks of traveling that I had back to back in March, or maybe it's, the seasons changing. It's very interesting in Michigan. And this is a tangent we're going to go on for just a minute. But we are in April, and it is still on the cusp of snowing, raining. Sometimes it's 70, sometimes it's 50. All of this stuff and things. And so when the seasons change like that, I just get, I think, really low energy. I think most of us do that, live in the Midwest. And I used to really battle with seasonal affective disorder. That is not the topic of this podcast. However, I just wanted to kind of let you know that my energy has just been kind of bleh. And if you're with me, you're with me, right? And as I reflected on kind of this low energy over the past few days, it's really struck me that I have not been efficient with my energy. And it's really been, honestly, since I've started my business. I think sometimes there is a little bit of a variation when we move from corporate into managing our own business, that we think that because it's a new, exciting adventure and because we are really wanting to do this thing, that we are going to have high energy all the time. And it's always going to be, lollipops and rainbows. And we have, things that we have got to do. And we know it's going to be a lot of work. We know that we are going to have to expend a lot of energy. But where I think we get caught up is we don't realize that this energy that we're outputting, if we're not consistently refilling our cup, we never get to replenish. And so your energy meter just kind of continues to come down. My energy level has been very much of that. It has been kind of, and I'll just share with you that I have some ADHD components that I'll talk about sort of as we continue on this journey, but I haven't really been formally diagnosed, but I know that they're there. And through working with my therapist, we've sort of identified what those are. And if you know anything about the ADHD and just sort of the research that comes with it, you can notice that at certain times in your pattern, that ADHD components can show up, and then sometimes they go away because you've kind of got it under control. And I feel like sometimes, honestly, the acronym ADHD is sort of a buzzword in society nowadays. But for those of us who truly feel it, you know that there are times where our energy just sucks the life out of us. I think also sometimes when we are identifying if we're an extrovert or an introvert, those things can all come into play as well. But tasks just start to sometimes feel overwhelming, and they really can be daunting. And when I first started to begin sort of my exhaustion, it really was towards the end of my day. It was usually when I am in heavy, heavy tasks every day. Some weeks are heavier than others. And what I'll say too is I am normally not a morning person. It's strange. I am very productive in the mornings. That is where my energy comes from. And I like slow mornings, and I like getting, stuff and things done and being very productive through my day. And I do love sleep. So those two things kind of work against each other, because on one hand, right, I could sleep all day. And I think it's because I love my bed so much. And if you were to talk to my husband, when we crawl in bed at night, we're just like, oh my gosh, we love this bed so much because it's just really glorious. And I do think that, having a good bed and having a good night's sleep, like there is something about that is just so, so good for you. However, I just like to get myself out of said bed in the morning can be sometimes excruciating. So when I start to think about when I get really tired in the afternoon, I've started to think to myself, like, why is this happening? What is coming about in me? And I think part of doing this inner work on yourself, as you've hopefully been listening through this journey, is being hyper-focused on finding out what exists and what is true inside of my heart and true inside of my brain has been really my life work lately. And sometimes I think that's where the exhaustion resides is, on one hand, I have to be super hyper-focused. I have to be A-type brain, right? Because I manage a team of people and I am, working with other folks that also are driven by deadlines. And so when I work with those types of people, that side of my brain has to be turned on. On the other hand, I have this creative free spirit brain that honestly, and I think as a business owner, we all just have this mindset, but like, if we could just run away, right? What do they say? If we could just run away and join the circus, right? That is sometimes what comes about. But doing this inner work and really beginning to heal the insides really lends itself to being able to pull back this onion layer and inspect every area of my life that is changing. It's different, and I've talked about this a little bit before, but I've been in therapy for 2 years, I think almost 2 years now. And part of reliving a lot of the trauma and reliving a lot of the fight or flight response that you often can have when you work through a lot of your trauma in your past really can open up areas of your brain and begin to open up areas of your life that you feel like you need to fill. Like you always need to have something brewing, right? And that's kind of what I was starting to trend towards. And I'm starting to realize that is that what is creating this exhaustion that is inside of me? So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was just sort of how I am using my energy a little bit wiser. And my hope is that if you are going through this same thing, and it doesn't have to be necessarily right now that you're, in therapy and now there's this big development and oh my gosh, what do you do with it? But you'll start to notice yourself throughout the day kind of getting lethargic in your work. Exhaustion comes and there's this component of, drink more water. And, sometimes that's it, right? Sometimes we're sitting down to work. We're not really taking care of ourselves in terms of eating and drinking properly. But sometimes that's not it. Sometimes the exhaustion is that you don't know why. There's not really an answer. You've sort of checked all the boxes of what it could be. And so my hope is that we can kind of pull back on this onion layer to really understand, like when we talk about our energy and we talk about the output that we are having from ourselves into the outside world, into our day-to-day, into our businesses, what does that actually mean? What do we need to be doing with this energy so that we have more of it when we actually need it, when it matters? So I want to walk through some of those components. And I think where we start is kind of treating ourselves as a specimen, right? Dissecting and noticing that you have this exhaustion. And I'm going to encourage you to put pen to paper because it's really about taking notes on when you have high energy and when you have low energy. And what are you doing during those times? Are you heavy in client work? Are you heavy on your business work? And understanding who is around. What is the efficiency that comes out of that? And do you have multiple things happening at one time? So for me, sometimes what this looks like is I have lots of tabs open. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it. We're working on it, but we're not going to talk about it. So a part of me releasing this energy is working through my day to day is sometimes I'm working on multiple different things at the same time. And I know back in the day, we used to hear, wow, you're really a multitasker. That's really great. And that used to be something that employers would want out of people. However, what we find is that's not really a badge of honor that we need to be carrying. Because when you are working on multiple things, that means multiple things are not getting done all at the same time, right? Because you're at different stages of each different project or each task. And so it really is the best of you to do one task at a time and make sure that it's done. And when nothing really truly gets finished, it can create sort of this low energy inside of us because we always have this running to-do list. We always have certain components of certain tasks that aren't fully completed. And so then we get pulled away or we're in this meeting or, something else happens to where we're not really finishing something. And so when I am working in my day, I really, really try to say, okay, what am I focused on right now? And sometimes that's hard if you're a leader of a team and they have multiple questions. But I say, okay, I have my chat screen on. If my team needs me, they need me. But my focus needs to be on this project. And so I have to sort of dissect, is this good for me to be working with multiple tabs open? And if not, what can I do to be able to relieve some of that pressure, right? And it's all about kind of feeling this pressure. So I, in dissecting, have to get really specific about what I'm doing. And when I started noticing that, it wasn't really until the afternoon that I felt super overwhelmed because I would start a few tasks in the morning. Maybe I would break for lunch or I would have a few meetings in between. And then when I would want to come back to the task, I was just completely exhausted. And that usually is because I am naturally an introvert. And so having meetings, having a talking role all the time, sometimes for me, that really wears me out. And so coming back to the tasks, plural, that I started in the beginning can be really overwhelmed. And at the end of my day, what would happen is I would leave work. And by leaving work, I mean getting up from my desk and getting into my home life. And I wouldn't even want to engage in the people in my household. I wouldn't even want to go out to the barn. I was just kind of by the time the weekend came, I was just ready. I was mentally ready. And so most of it was I just wanted to loaf around the house, which sometimes that's okay. But other times, there are things that I would like to do around the house or the yard or go to the barn or whatever. And I just wasn't able to do it because I was mentally taxed. So what did I do in all of my wisdom? Right? Get games on my phone. First of all, let's back up. Who needs that? Who does? And it was just recently that I just said to my husband, I'm deleting these off my phone. They are not serving me. They're not helping me. And as a matter of fact, this whole entire week, I'm just going to be honest. I didn't go to the gym one time because I was up till midnight playing these stupid games. Y'all, I am almost 40 years old. Who needs to be doing all that, right? So all of that to say, I got distracted and I figured out that in my distraction, I was becoming more exhausted. So when I began to notice that, I changed the behavior. And also one of the things that I notice is when I am driving or when I am talking, I am naturally kind of a fast-paced person, which is very interesting. But welcome to the Midwest, because that's usually how it goes. And so when I would be driving or talking, I would think to myself, wow, like you are just really sped up there. And I know my husband listens to my podcast and he's probably thinking, holy crap, like she's finally getting it. However, he's told me like I'm a very aggressive driver. And I keep saying to him like, oh, no, I'm not. Like, this is just who I am. But I think part of that, and again, noticing the little things, is also noticing like when I would be in conversation with somebody and listening to something, like my YouTube videos are on 1.5 times speed because they weren't talking fast enough. Right. So I'm just kind of giving you examples of little tiny things that I just started noticing. And it was because I was trying to fill my energy cup up so fast that I realized that what I was filling my cup up with were external things. Instead of becoming more quiet and becoming more still, I was filling what thought was going to be my energy bucket with things that were actually still sucking my energy. And so it kind of started to spiral inside of my brain. Protecting this energy is so, so important. And being an advocate of who you are, the energy that you need and the things that you actually allow to consume your life are very, very important. And it's important not just from a heart perspective, but it's important from a brain perspective. Because when our brain is in consistent overload stress, and you can look this up. I've also talked to my mom's neurologist, but when our brain is in consistent overload from stress, a lot of brain disorders and chronic stress can create sort of this dementia and other types of brain activities start to develop. And so like when I think about my mom who has this mild congenital decline, which is sort of her diagnosis, it's a fancy term for mild dementia for any of those that want to know. But when she is under chronic stress, like especially right now, it's actually hurting her rather than helping her. So she's not able to concentrate like she needs to. And so understanding this from sort of her perspective kind of gave me encouragement to say, what is my mental load that I'm taking on? What is something that I can do to alleviate the mental load? And when I started weeding through a lot of the trauma that was going unaddressed for so many years, I felt the need to fill it in because of always needed to be thinking about something. And it was almost like I was scared, right, to be in the silence. And it starts to hurt way deeper than we even realize. And it's not just causing the exhaustion that is day to day. It's not just making us tired. It's giving long-term effects when we are doing these types of things. And when we talk about sort of protecting our energy, that really is the focus on why it's so important. It's because it's not just for today, right? It's not just for this week. It's not just for this month. It's not just getting through this season. It's not just getting through the rest of the year. We literally have to look at this as it is something when the world slows down, when you retire from your position, when life has just started to physically slow down, that life that you have created. Your brain is still going to be under stress. My brain is still going to be operating at 120%. But really, by the time we get to retirement, it should be working in parallel with each other, where our brain really starts to slow down. But there are things that we can do and be mindful of things to be focused on to help our brain understand that when there's downtime, it's time to slow down. When we need it to actually rev up, it's there to rev up. So this Nina Aubert, bless her, when she says slow down to rev up, it's so that you can protect your energy and you can use your energy to the best of the ability. So noticing things, right? Really starting to dissect, what it is that we are trying to do here. So the next piece of this is identifying what it is that you're allowing. And so one of the things that I tend to focus on is not just noticing what is happening, but also knowing what matters to us. What is serving me right now? What is bringing me joy? And what do you want to have in your life? Who do you want to have in your life? And what are the high energy sources that you love? So for me, it's my horse. It's my animals. It's spending time with my husband. It's spending time with our children. And it really is filling my cup to be able to pour into women at our church. And it's also my career. But you'll notice that my career was the last thing that I talked about because all of these other things are so, so important. And those are the things that are most important to me because when my career ends, those are the things that I'll still have. But when we talk about our career, there's an energy spend that we need to be mindful of. I can be really, really, really joyful in my career. And I can also have to be mindful on when I'm on overload and when I have to communicate that to the people that are around me and I have to ask for help. But if I don't ask for help, what happens is I feel like I need to take it all on. And I feel like I need to do tasks that really aren't mine and aren't for me. And so two things happen. One, I end up being resentful because I didn't ask for help. And that is resentful to me and everyone else around me. But also I feel like, well, nobody asked to help me. You can kind of get those feelings. But what I can realize is that if I didn't ask for help, they don't know what they don't know, especially in our careers. And so if I'm not saying it to them, hey, would you mind doing X, Y, and Z? And then they don't know that I don't need that thing, they'll have no idea. And the onus really is on me to raise my hand and say, this is too much. I need to back up and I need to do those things. And I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Finding the things that bring you joy, knowing what matters to you is important. And one of the other things that I have tried to work on and I have fought for many, many, many months is I've tried to move to an online task management system, just for my own tasks, right? Even if I have a project management task system, I need something that is solely for me. And I love pen to paper and I love my planner. I love being able to write things out. And so I've really had to work with myself because I want to be inside of this planner. And I love writing it down. And because I want this online project management system too, is I had to find a system that ultimately worked. And part of that is, okay, what are the things that are on autopilot? What are the things like paper towels, dog food, all of the things? What are those things that can be in the task management system that I know that, I need to order at specific times, giving myself deadlines. And really it's coming down to what I'm putting on paper is if these are the only things that I am able to get done, then I am accomplished for the day. But what I realized is that I also needed this task system that gave me the specific deadline that it was due so that I had something to pull from, right? So what brings me joy is being organized, is what I'm saying here. But I am a chaotic organized person currently. I'm working through that. We're all going to work through this together. But you know exactly what I'm talking about because here's the thing. I will find things on the other days, right? If I'm writing it down or if I'm utilizing a task system that doesn't have deadlines that pop up, right? I will pull things from the other day that don't necessarily need to be done yet, but because they're easy and they're fun, I'll do those instead. Like, who am I? And who are you that if you do that? But it just keeps me busy. And then what happens is the deadlines that do come, if I am behind or if I haven't quite started it yet, I'm overwhelmed. So do you see how it can kind of like spiral? If you don't figure out, right, what it is that it needs to serve you, if you're not figuring out what it is that matters to you, or figuring out what brings you joy, and you think that doing all of the things is going to bring you joy, and what you want to have in life and who you want to have in your life to help you kind of accomplish these things that you want to do, if we're not assessing what those things are, we'll never be able to get out of this energy spiral that we're in. And so what I need to remember, and I'm preaching this to myself just as much as I'm preaching to you, is that I need to stay within my lane and I need to stay on my task list. And if something gets moved around or if something no longer brings me joy, I need to communicate that. If I need help with something, I need to communicate that. And if it isn't something that is bringing out the best in me, I need to assess whether or not it's worth my investment of my time and my energy. And so what is not good, right? Investing in my time is games in the middle of the night or not having a good task management system or not asking for help. And so investing in people that can help, that want to help, is part of me being able to be encouraging. And I cannot be encouraging to my team or anyone else if I don't first assess what brings me joy. And I'm not going to invest my time in this negative self-talk. Like, that is not going to be a thing. So there's other things that I need to be doing instead. And one of the other things that I decided I wasn't going to do was I wasn't going to be part of any like PTO situation. You know, like when Daniel was in 6th grade, I'm like, oh, this will be fun. I'll be a PTO mom. And then I realized real quick, like, nope. I'm out. Like, this is not for me. And so it doesn't serve my family. It doesn't serve anyone because it would just be crazy. And so what I realized is that when I started to make this mental list and this physical list of like, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm not going to do, like these are my boundaries, I started becoming happier. And I actually started to have a little more energy because I was pouring into the things that I love. And I was pouring into them with positive energy. Like my career brings me joy. My career brings me valuable joy. The team of people that I have and the things that I do in my day to day, those bring me exquisite joy. And so the extracurricular activities, right, of being on PTO or doing other community things that I just felt like I needed to show up on because it's, you know, who I am as a person to naturally want to help everyone. I had to dial that back because it's like, nope, if it's not serving you, if it's not serving your family, and if it's not maximizing my energy in a positive direction, then I just don't need to be doing it. The final thing I have for you is not to overanalyze it. You know, there's a lot of do this and not that, and be this and not that. And I have spent many, many nights over analyzing my day at night, laying in bed. And as a matter of fact, you know, just last night, I had to force myself to not pick up my phone to go to bed. I was like a 5-year-old in my head, telling like my behind, like, get yourself to bed. And I kept thinking to myself, like, why am I like this? But the reason why I'm like this is because I'm allowing myself to overanalyze my day. I'm allowing myself to overanalyze who I am. Am I enough? And I really had to spend some time with myself and say, shut it down. Like, this is not serving you. And so I went right into prayer because I was like, I need this burden to be taken away from me. And so I don't know if like you're into the universe or you're into Jesus or whatever you have, but you have to find some way where you are not overanalyzing every single detail of your day, because that is exhausting. And it does not give you a renewed, fresh start for the next morning. And again, it's putting mental stress on your brain, right? Because the day is done. Like, there's nothing that you can do at this point. Everything that has happened. And guess what? Tomorrow's a new day. And you don't have to worry about tomorrow either, because tomorrow's not here yet. So go to sleep. Like, that's what I told myself. Like, tomorrow has enough worries of its own. You don't need to worry about tomorrow today. I don't need this mental stress, Callie. So I hope that, through all of this, if there's something that you walk away, which is your energy is so, so important, the way that you move throughout your day and the way that you show up and the things that you allow in your life and you don't allow in your life, those are all super, super important things to reflect on, but also not at the expense of overanalyzing it at the end of the night. And it's also an encouragement to you to change the way in which you're showing up in your life. And so my hope for you today is that if you start to notice some of the things that you will think about yourself as a science experiment and, kind of dissect and start to peel back the layers and say, what am I allowing and what am I spending my energy on? Because if it's not what I've designed or what God has for me, then it's just not something that I need to be putting effort into. So my friends, I am just sending you an abundance of love. I'm giving you a big hug, and I'm just trying to send my positive energy to you so that you will be encouraged to start figuring out where your energy is being expended. I hope that you find relief, and I hope that you find genuine comfort. And friends, go and be your own science experiment. Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you heard something that helped you, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with your friends. This helps more people just like you become inspired to move the needle of their big CEO energy into a positive direction. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth or lead your business as a CEO, feel free to jump into the show notes with all of the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.